Alright, here we are in Paint.net. This is a program that you can download for free if you use a Windows operating system. If you use Macintosh or some other thing, you might have to use Photoshop or something else. But this is a pretty good program for free. And right now we're going to learn about selecting, how to select items. We've got a bunch of puzzle pieces that we're going to try to select and fill them into the puzzle here. We've got a number of tools that we can use to select. The first one is the rectangular select tool. This is very good for squares. We have a lasso tool that's good for odd shapes. We've got a elliptical tool here that allows us to select circles and ovals. And then we got the magic wand tool here that lets us select shapes automatically. That's really handy. We'll use that last. And then if you look up here on our menu, you can see that we have different select modes. We have a replace mode, which allows us to select something. Whoops, I used my magic wand. Replace mode, once we select one thing, it gets rid of whatever we selected. Then we have the add, which allows us to add things to whatever we've selected. When we select stuff, we can then add more to it. We've got subtract, which allows us to take whatever is selected and minus things from that selection. And then we've got a intersect and an invert, which are more complicated. We don't really have to worry about those right now. But to deselect, if I hit move and then hit exit, that'll deselect anything. So we'll start with the rectangular tool. I'm going to select the rectangular tool. I'm going to make sure that I'm in replace mode. I'm going to move my mouse over the corner of my square, and I'm going to drag it over and diagonally down to the other corner. Okay, so then I've got my selection here, and if I hit control and hold control down, hit plus a little bit, I can zoom in on things and take a look and see my selection. And here I can see that it looks like I got one, well, maybe it's fine, but it looks like I got one too many pixels on top here. So if I switch it to subtract mode, I can then draw a box which encompasses that one little pixel, and it'll like snip it off. Bam. So now it's deselected. I'm going to hit control minus, it'll zoom me out. And then I can go back to my tools here, and I can choose the move selected pixel short key. So I'll click on that, and now I can just move my entire selection right down here. Now don't be surprised if it doesn't look perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. You want to make it as perfect as you can. I'm just doing things quickly here, so mine are really not going to be very perfect. So that's how we use a square. Here we've got two squares, and they are overlapping. So I'm going to use the rectangular tool here, and I'm going to switch to add union view, because that will allow me to select one square. So there's one square. And then when I am done selecting it, I can then add another one. And this first selection will stay put as I then go to this other corner down here and select the other square. So they were added together because of that add or union choice. Okay, so now I can go to my move selected. The only thing is I've got this selected down here as well as this. So I messed up. I've got to deselect this. So I'm going to switch it to subtract here, and I'll just draw a box around this other part that was selected that I don't want selected, and that becomes unselected now. I just have my two boxes here. Okay, so I'm going to move selection. I'll go ahead and take those two boxes and fill it in over here. Alright, so now with number 3, I've got a box, but it's got an empty box inside of it. So in order to do this, I'm again going to use the rectangle select, but at some point I've got to use the subtract. I'll start with the add here, and I will draw one box that'll get everything, and then I'll move to subtract, and then I'll subtract that little window in the middle. Now it looks like I subtracted not enough. I've still got like one pixel, so I'm going to try to draw another little box, include that one little pixel. Okay. I'm subtracting. Look, I forgot to deselect these two squares over here, so I'm going to use my subtraction to subtract them. Okay, now I can move my selected piece right on top of where it's supposed to go. Again, don't expect that you'll do it perfect. You want to do it as close as you can though. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is get this circle. And so I'm going to choose the Ellipse Select tool, and I want to make sure I'm in Replace or Add Union. I'll probably choose Replace mode here. And then I want to take this plus sign and I want to move it to anywhere on the perimeter. So I'll just put it right here on the perimeter. I'll hold it down and I'll hold Shift, and that'll make it a circle, force it to be a circle. And I'll just pull right across to the exact opposite side of the perimeter. So if I start on top, I'd end on the bottom. Here I started on the left side, I'm going to end on the right side, and that will make a perfect, I'm going to hold that shift down to make a perfect circle. Okay, now I can go ahead and change to Move Selected Pixels, and I can move that circle into position. Alright, now I want to deselect this. Hitting Escape will deselect that. So it's a good idea to deselect stuff before you go on selecting other things. Right, so now I've got some shapes that are a little bit more difficult. We're going to do things the hard way. And one way is to use the lasso. And what I can do with the lasso is I would just take this and hold it down, and I'm going to go around the outer circumference of the shape, just holding my button down, drawing around. So this is kind of a bummer, and it's especially a bummer when you aren't very zoomed into it like I am. I'm zoomed out. But I'm just going to go ahead, take my time, draw it around. If I mess up, I can add or subtract parts later. Okay, going around, going around. Uh-oh. Okay, so now I've lassoed that whole thing. I can see that I've got this little spot right here that I got some spots where I went over here, so I've got white where I didn't want it, and I'm missing this yellow over here. So I'm going to use the lasso tool again, but this time I'm going to change to Add or Union mode so that it'll keep what's here and add whatever I lasso. So I'm going to lasso a little bit more here. That added that. And I've got a little bit more down here to add. Okay, so that's been added. Then now I've got to subtract, so I'm going to go to subtract mode, or sorry, subtract mode. And now whatever I lasso is going to be subtracted, so I want to do the exact opposite. I'm going to start trying to get rid of these white spaces that were selected by accident. Okay, so again, you don't have to be perfect. Just want to get the concept of how to select stuff and the add and subtract concepts. Okay, I'm going to zoom out, Control minus again, and now I can use my Move Selected Pixels tool to move this into position. Not very pretty. Okay, for jagged shapes, we can also use the same lasso selection, but the truth is that Paint.net doesn't have a very good tool compared to Photoshop or other programs for getting sharp shapes. The best tool that we can use is our magic wand, so we'll choose that. And the magic wand will kind of automatically figure out what to select. And so if I click on this blue, I've still got this selected, so I've got to hit Escape and unselect that. Okay, so if I click on this blue, I'm in subtract mode here. Okay, so now I'm in Add Union. I can start adding stuff to this. So here I'm building to this. Every time I click, it adds another color on here. I can look for little dots. Okay, so that, by clicking all of that, I was able to select that, and I can move it. So that's one way that I can select, by just clicking it a whole bunch of times with magic wand mode. Okay, I'll deselect that. But as I'll do with number 7 here, Another way I could do it is I could take my magic wand and I could select somewhere in the white. So if I select the white, it selects everything except for the part that I want. And now I can invert. So if I invert it, then it'll select the exact opposite. Instead of selecting the white, it'll select everything that's not the white. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to invert. I'm going to go edit and then invert selection. Now it's inverted. And then I'll just start subtracting everything I don't want to have selected. So I'll go into subtract mode here, and I can even change it so that I'm using the rectangular selection tool to do the subtraction. I'll just draw a box around everything I don't want. Boom, so I don't want that, don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. Alright, don't want the 7 here. And I've got this other big balloon here that I don't want to select. Okay, so now all I have is that shape that's selected. I can switch then to move selected pixels and move that right into place. That's about as close as we can get on that. So as you can see, the magic wand is much easier. And you could have cheated and used the magic wand for these squares. And if you did, well, you just missed that part of the understanding. Okay, so that's it for that.